Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, staring at the dark void ahead. The ship had been traveling for 3 weeks through empty space, far from any known worlds or trade routes. This was routine work, the kind that most captains found boring. But Jake liked the quiet. Out here, away from the busy Federation worlds, he could think clearly. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Commander Ryan Bell from his station. Ryan had been Jake's first officer for 5 years now. He was a good man, steady and reliable. Jake walked over to Ryan's console. The screen showed a mess of colored lines and numbers that most people wouldn't understand. But Jake had been reading these displays for 20 years. Something was definitely wrong with this picture. "What am I looking at, Ryan?" "Energy readings from the Kepler 442 system. According to our charts, that system went dead 2,000 years ago. The star burned out and nothing should be alive there anymore." Jake frowned. The Federation kept very detailed records of every star system in known space. If they said a system was dead, it usually stayed dead, but the numbers on Ryan's screen told a different story. "Could it be a mistake with our sensors?" "I ran 3 full checks. Everything's working fine on our end." Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her own workstation across the bridge. She was the ship's chief science officer and one of the smartest people Jake had ever met. Lisa could speak 12 different alien languages and had studied every known species in the galaxy. "Captain, if I may," Lisa said, walking over to join them. "The Federation marked that system as dead space over 2 millennia ago, but these readings suggest active energy use on a planetary scale." Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief engineer, came up from the lower decks just in time to hear Lisa's comment. Elena had a gift for understanding how alien technology worked, even when the aliens themselves couldn't explain it. "Active energy use means someone's still alive out there," Elena said, wiping grease from her hands with a cloth. "The question is who?" Jake looked at his crew. These were good people, people he trusted with his life every day. The Federation rules were clear about situations like this. When a ship found something unexpected, they were supposed to report it immediately and wait for orders. No exceptions, but something about this felt different. The Kepler 442 system was in what the Federation called the Outer Rim, a place where most species didn't bother to go. If someone was still alive out there after all this time, they might need help. "How long would it take us to reach the system?" Jake asked. Ryan checked his navigation computer. "About 6 hours at current speed." "And how long to send a message back to Federation headquarters and get a response?" "At least 3 days, maybe 4. Jake made his decision. "Set course for Kepler 442. "We're going to take a look." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Captain, that goes against Federation protocol. We should report this first." "I know what the rules say, Lisa, but if someone out there needs help, waiting 3 days for permission might be too long." The next 6 hours passed slowly. Jake spent most of the time in his quarters thinking about what they might find. The Federation was made up of hundreds of different alien species, but humans were still the newcomers. They had only joined 60 years ago, which was nothing compared to species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. Sometimes Jake wondered if humanity brought something different to the galaxy. Most of the older species seemed to have lost their curiosity about the unknown. They followed rules and procedures, but they rarely took risks to help strangers. "Captain, we're approaching the system now," Ryan called over the ship's communication system. Jake hurried back to the bridge. On the main screen, he could see a dying red star surrounded by several planets. One of the planets was glowing with a soft blue light. "That's definitely not natural," Elena said, studying her instruments. "Someone built those lights." Lisa was practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, I'm detecting artificial structures on the surface, cities, I think. But they're unlike anything in our databases." As they got closer, the planet revealed its secrets. Vast crystal cities rose from the surface like frozen lightning. But something was wrong. Many of the crystal structures were broken or dark. The beautiful cities looked like they were dying. "I'm detecting life signs," Ryan reported, "but they're weak. Very weak." Jake felt his chest tighten. Whoever lived down there was in trouble. Lisa, can you establish communication? I'm trying, Captain. The signal patterns are completely unknown to me. Lisa worked at her station for several minutes, her fingers flying over the controls. Wait, I think I've got something. A new sound filled the bridge. It was like music, but sad and strange. The sounds rose and fell in patterns that seemed almost like speech. It's definitely communication, Lisa said. But I've never heard anything like it. Give me some time, and I might be able to figure out their language. Elena, what can you tell me about those cities? Elena shook her head in amazement. They're grown, not built. Someone used living crystal to create those structures. The technology is incredible, but it's failing. Whatever power source they use is running out. Jake stared at the dying cities on the screen. Somewhere down there, an entire species was facing extinction, and the galaxy had forgotten they existed. The Federation databases said this system was empty, but clearly that was wrong. Captain, Ryan said quietly, if we help them, we'll be violating direct orders. The Federation doesn't like it when their members act without permission. Jake knew Ryan was right. This decision could end his career and get his crew in serious trouble. But as he looked at the failing crystal cities, he knew he couldn't just walk away. Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules, Jake said. Lisa, keep working on that translation. Elena, I want to know everything you can learn about their technology. Ryan, prepare a shuttle. We're going down there. The shuttle touched down on the crystal planet's surface with a soft thud. Jake looked out through the small window at a world unlike anything he had ever seen. The ground itself seemed to be made of smooth, clear crystal that reflected the dying red sun above. In the distance, the broken spires of the alien city reached toward the sky like frozen tears. Air is breathable, Elena reported, checking her instruments. Gravity is about 80% of Earth normal. Temperature is comfortable. Lisa clutched her translation device tightly. During the 6-hour journey down to the planet, she had worked without rest to understand the alien language. I think I can communicate basic ideas now, she said. But their language is very complex. It's like they speak in music and mathematics at the same time. Jake opened the shuttle door and stepped onto the crystal ground. His boots made a strange ringing sound with each step. Ryan and the others followed behind him, their weapons ready but not raised. They didn't want to seem threatening. They had walked for only a few minutes when the aliens appeared. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The beings were tall and thin, made of the same crystal material as their cities. Light moved through their bodies in slow, beautiful patterns. But even Jake could see that something was terribly wrong with them. Dark spots covered their crystal skin, and their movements were slow and painful. The largest alien stepped forward and made the same musical sounds they had heard on the ship. Lisa listened carefully, then spoke into her translation device. The machine made similar musical tones back to the alien. The alien's crystal body brightened for a moment as if it was surprised. It spoke again, longer this time. What did it say? Jake asked quietly. Lisa's eyes were wide with shock. He says his name is Kethivor, and he's the leader of what's left of his people. Captain, they've been trying to contact the outside galaxy for over 1,000 years. No one has answered their calls. Jake felt sick to his stomach. 1,000 years of calling for help and no one had listened. Kethivor spoke again, his crystal form growing dimmer with the effort. He's asking if we're really here, or if this is just another dream brought on by the sickness, Lisa translated. Captain, his people are dying. There's some kind of disease that's destroying their crystal biology. They call it the Gray Death. Jake stepped closer to Kethivor and spoke slowly while Lisa translated. We are real. We are here to help if we can. Tell me what happened to your people. The alien leader's response was long and filled with sadness. Lisa listened, asking questions through her device to make sure she understood correctly. The Kethmori have lived on this world for over 50,000 years, Lisa explained. They were once part of the galactic community, but that was very long ago. About 2,000 years ago, their world was classified as dead by the Federation. Since then, All their messages have been ignored or blocked by automatic systems. How? Is that possible? Ryan asked. The Federation checks their records regularly. Lisa asked Kethvor more questions. The answers made Jake angry. It started as a simple filing error, Lisa said. Someone marked their world as uninhabitable in the Federation database. When the Kethemori tried to correct the mistake, their messages were sent to a department that no longer existed. The automatic systems kept sending back replies saying their world was confirmed as empty. 2,000 years of bureaucratic mistakes, Elena said, shaking her head, and no one bothered to double-check. Kethevor led them through the dying Crystal City. Jake saw hundreds of aliens, all showing signs of the same dark sickness. Crystal children played weakly in gardens that were turning gray and lifeless. Elder, Kethmori sat in meditation circles, their light growing dimmer each day. The Gray Death started about 500 years ago, Lisa translated as they walked. It attacks their crystal biology, turning their living crystal into dead stone. They've tried everything they know, but nothing works. Kethvor estimates his people have maybe 50 years left before they all die. Jake stopped walking. 50 years, that's all? Maybe less, Lisa said after asking for clarification. The disease is spreading faster now. They reached the center of the city, where a massive crystal spire stretched high into the sky. But this spire was different from the others. It pulsed with weak energy, and Jake could see machines built into its base. This is their communication center, Lisa explained. They've been sending out distress calls every single day for 1,000 years. The signals are strong enough to reach Federation space, but no one has ever responded. Elena walked over to examine the alien technology. Her eyes lit up with understanding. Captain, this is incredible. Their technology is far more advanced than anything I've seen. They're using living crystal to store and process information. This could revolutionize our understanding of computers and communications. But Jake wasn't thinking about technology. He was thinking about an entire species that had been calling for help while the galaxy ignored them. It reminded him of stories from old Earth, of people who died while others looked the other way. Kethvor, Jake said, and waited for Lisa to translate. My people will help you. We'll find a way to cure this disease and get you the recognition you deserve from the galaxy. The alien leader's crystal body flared with bright light. When Lisa translated his response, her voice was filled with emotion. He says that, in all the years of calling for help, we are the first ones to answer. He wants to know why we're different from the others. Jake thought about that question. Why were humans different? Maybe it was because they were still new to the galaxy. Maybe it was because they remembered what it was like to be alone and afraid. Tell him, Jake said slowly, that my people believe that everyone deserves help when they need it. No one should die alone while others have the power to save them. As they prepared to return to their ship, Jake knew that everything was about to change. The Federation wouldn't like what he was planning to do, but sometimes, doing the right thing meant making powerful enemies. He just hoped his crew was ready for the fight that was coming. 3 days after their first contact with the Kethmori, Jake's peaceful mission turned into his worst nightmare. The bridge alarm woke him from a deep sleep, and he ran to the command center still wearing his sleeping clothes. What's the situation? He asked Ryan, who was already at his station. Federation ships, Captain. 3 of them coming in fast. Ryan's face was grim. The lead ship is the UFS Authority. That's Admiral Patricia Stone's flagship. Jake's stomach dropped. Admiral Stone was known throughout the Federation for following rules exactly, no matter what the cost. If she was here, it meant someone had reported their discovery of the Kethmori. How long until they arrive? 20 minutes, maybe less. Jake grabbed his uniform and dressed quickly while giving orders. Get Lisa and Elena up here immediately, and send a message to Kethvor on the planet. Tell him to keep his people hidden until we know what the Federation wants. Lisa and Elena arrived on the bridge just as the Federation ships dropped out of hyperspace. The 3 vessels were massive compared to the horizon, their dark hulls bristling with weapons and sensors. Incoming transmission, Ryan reported. Put it on screen. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main display. She was an older woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to look right through people. Jake had met her once before, and she had made it clear that she didn't think much of humans or their place in the Federation. "Captain Morrison," Stone said without any greeting, "you are ordered to cease all contact with the inhabitants of this system immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Admiral, with respect, the people down there need our help. They're dying from a disease that we might be able to cure." Stone's expression didn't change. "The Federation has no record of any inhabited worlds in this system. According to our official documents, Kepler 442 has been dead space for 2,000 years. Any signals you think you've detected are likely natural phenomena that you've misinterpreted." Jake felt his anger rising. "Admiral, I've been down to the planet. I've spoken with their leader. These aren't natural phenomena. They're a dying civilization that's been calling for help for 1,000 years. Captain Morrison, you are clearly suffering from space madness brought on by extended isolation. Report to my ship immediately for medical evaluation. Your crew will remain on the horizon under guard until this situation is resolved." The transmission ended, and Jake stared at the blank screen in disbelief. Space madness? The Admiral was going to claim that he and his entire crew had imagined the Kethmori. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "she's not going to let us help them." Elena was checking her instruments. "The Federation ships are powering up their weapons. They're not taking any chances." Jake had to make a choice, and he had to make it fast. He could surrender, go aboard Stone's ship, and let the Federation cover up the existence of the Kethmori. In a few weeks, everyone would forget this had ever happened, and an entire species would die in silence, or he could fight. "Ryan, send a message to Earth. Tell them what we've found here and what the Federation is trying to do. Make sure the message gets to President Davis herself." "That will take days to reach Earth, Captain." "I know. But at least someone will know the truth." Jake turned to face his crew. "Everyone listen to me. What I'm about to do could end all of our careers. The Federation is going to call us rebels and criminals. If anyone wants to leave now, I'll understand." Lisa spoke first. "I didn't become a scientist to ignore suffering people, Captain. I'm with you." Elena nodded. "Those crystal cities are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I won't let them die because of some bureaucrat's paperwork error." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "My father always told me that a man's character is shown by what he does when no one is watching. But I think it's really shown by what he does when everyone is watching, and it's still the right thing to do." Jake felt proud of his crew. These were good people, people worth following into danger. "All right then. Ryan, take us down to the planet. Stay low and use the crystal formations to hide us from their sensors." The horizon dropped toward the planet's surface just as Stone's ships moved to intercept them. The Federation vessels were faster, but Jake's ship was smaller and more maneuverable. "They're firing warning shots," Ryan reported as energy beams lit up the space around them. "Keep going. Get us to the Kethmori city." They made it to the planet's surface just ahead of the Federation ships. Jake could see Stone's vessels circling overhead like angry birds of prey. "Incoming transmission from the Admiral," Ryan said. Stone's face reappeared on screen, and this time she looked furious. "Captain Morrison, you are now in violation of direct Federation orders. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." "Admiral, I'm not going to let an entire species die because of a filing error. If that makes me a criminal, then so be it." "You don't understand the bigger picture, Morrison. The Federation operates on principles that have kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. We cannot have every species acting on their own whenever they find something that tugs at their heartstrings. What about justice, Admiral? What about doing what's right?" Stone's laugh was cold and harsh. "Right and wrong are luxuries for species that don't have to govern an entire galaxy. The Federation makes the hard choices so that billions of beings can live in peace. Sacrificing one small species to maintain that peace is an acceptable cost." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. Acceptable to who? To those of us with the wisdom to see beyond our own emotions. Stone's image leaned forward. "You have 1 hour to surrender, Morrison. After that, I will consider you and your crew to be rebels against the lawful authority of the Federation." The consequences of that designation are severe. The transmission ended, leaving Jake and his crew alone with their thoughts. They had 1 hour to decide whether to surrender or become outlaws. Jake looked down at the crystal city below them, where hundreds of dying aliens were probably watching the sky and wondering if their salvation had just turned into another disappointment. He made his choice. Jake's hour was almost up when the impossible happened. 3 more ships dropped out of hyperspace, but these weren't Federation vessels. The lead ship was the UES Defiance, and Jake recognized it immediately. His old friend Maria Santos was the captain. "Incoming transmission," Ryan said, barely able to hide his excitement. Maria's familiar face appeared on screen. She was a small woman with dark hair and fierce eyes that had gotten her into trouble more than once during their academy days. "Hello, Jake. Heard you were having some problems with Federation bureaucrats." "Maria, what are you doing here? If Stone sees you, she'll have you arrested too." "Let her try. I brought some friends." Maria smiled. "Earth got your message about 3 hours ago. President Davis wasn't happy when she heard what the Federation was planning to do." Jake felt hope stirring in his chest for the first time in days. "What did she say?" "She said that humanity didn't join the Federation to watch innocent people die because of paperwork. The Defiance, the Liberty, and the Independence are here under direct orders from Earth Command." Admiral Stone's ship immediately moved to intercept the new arrivals. Jake could imagine how angry she must be. The situation had just gone from a simple disciplinary action to a potential interstellar incident. "Captain Morrison," Stone's voice came over the communication system. "Order your ships to stand down immediately. This is Federation space and Earth vessels have no authority here." Maria answered before Jake could speak. "Admiral Stone, this is Captain Santos of the UES Defiance. We are operating under emergency humanitarian protocols. Earth Command has determined that the situation here requires immediate assistance. Captain Santos, you are interfering with a lawful Federation operation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." "Negative, Admiral. We're staying right here." Jake watched as the 2 fleets faced each other in space above the crystal planet. 6 ships in total, representing 2 very different ideas about what was right and wrong. Down on the planet's surface, Lisa had been working with Kethivor and his scientists to understand the Gray Death disease. She came running into the Horizon's main cabin with excitement written all over her face. "Captain, I think we've found something important. The Gray Death isn't a natural disease. Someone created it." Jake turned away from watching the ships above. "What do you mean, created it?" "Elena and I have been studying the disease with Kethivor's help. The way it attacks their crystal biology is too precise to be natural. It's designed to target only the Kethmori genetic structure." Elena nodded from her workstation. "The disease has markers that show it was built in a laboratory. Someone wanted to kill the Kethmori specifically. But who would do such a thing?" Lisa pulled up a display showing the planet's star charts from 2,000 years ago. "Captain, look at this. The Kethmori homeworld sits right in the middle of a major trade route. If someone wanted to build a shipping station here, they would need the planet to be empty." Jake stared at the charts. The pieces were starting to come together. "Are you saying someone poisoned an entire species just to steal their world?" "It's the only explanation that makes sense. The timing matches perfectly. Right around the time the Federation marked this world as dead, the disease first appeared." Jake felt sick. It was bad enough that the Federation had ignored the Kethmori's calls for help. But if someone had deliberately caused their suffering, and the Federation had helped cover it up, then this was much worse than just bureaucratic mistakes. "Can we cure it?" Lisa's face lit up. "I think so. Elena and I have been working with Kethivor's scientists. Their crystal biology is incredible. If we can modify their healing crystals to recognize and destroy the artificial disease, we might be able to save them." "How long would that take?" "Maybe a week if we work around the clock." Jake looked up at the ceiling, knowing that Admiral Stone's ships were waiting above them. "We might not have a week." That's when Ryan called out from the communication station. "Captain, we're getting messages from all over the galaxy. Word about the Kethmori is spreading fast. Jake hurried over to see what Ryan was looking at. The display showed dozens of incoming transmissions from news services, government officials, and ordinary citizens across Federation space. How did word get out so fast? Some of our crew sent personal messages to friends and family before we landed. Those people told others, and now everyone knows about the forgotten species. Jake read some of the messages. Many were from young people who were outraged that the Federation had ignored a dying species. Others were from scientists who wanted to study Kethmori crystal technology. A few were from government officials asking for more information. "Captain," Ryan said, "there's something else. We're getting offers of help. 3 ships from the Centauri, Republic, are on their way here. The Free Worlds Alliance is sending medical supplies. Even some individual Federation citizens are defying their own government to help us." Jake couldn't believe it. What had started as one human ship helping a forgotten species was turning into a galaxy-wide movement. Admiral Stone's voice came over the communication system again, but this time she sounded less confident. "Captain Morrison, the situation has changed. Federation Command is ordering a full review of the Kepler 442 classification. You are to maintain your current position until further notice." Jake smiled. The Federation was backing down, at least for now. Public pressure was forcing them to reconsider their position. But Jake knew this was far from over. The Federation didn't like to admit mistakes, and they especially didn't like being forced to change by public opinion. They would find another way to deal with the Kethmori situation, probably one that didn't involve letting humanity take credit for the rescue. "Lisa," Jake said, "how fast can you and Elena work on that cure? If we don't sleep and the Kethmori scientists help us around, the clock may be 4 days. Then that's what we'll do. Ryan, get me a secure channel to Captain Santos. Maria and I need to talk about how to keep the Federation busy for 4 days." Jake looked out at the crystal cities below, where hope was returning for the first time in centuries. The Kethmori were going to live and the galaxy was going to remember them, but first they had to survive the next 4 days. 4 days later, Jake stood in the center of the largest Kethmori city, watching something that would change the galaxy forever. Lisa and Elena had worked without sleep alongside Kethavor's brightest scientists. Now they were ready to test their cure. The healing crystal was beautiful. It was the size of a basketball and glowed with soft blue light. Elena held it carefully while Lisa made final adjustments to its internal structure. "This should work," Lisa said, though Jake could hear the worry in her voice. "The crystal is programmed to recognize the artificial disease and destroy it, but we've never tested it on a living Kethmori." Kethavor stepped forward. The alien leader looked much weaker than when they had first met. The gray death had spread further through his crystal body, leaving dark patches that seemed to eat the light. "I will be the first test," Kethavor said through Lisa's translation device. "If it kills me, at least my people will know that someone tried to save us." "Wait," Jake said. "What if we test it on a small area first, just to make sure it's safe?" Kethavor's crystal body flickered with what Jake had learned was laughter. "Captain Morrison, my people have been dying for 500 years. I am not afraid of hope." The alien leader placed his hand on the healing crystal. For a moment nothing happened. Then light began to flow from the crystal into Kethavor's body. The dark patches of disease started to change, becoming lighter and brighter. Jake held his breath as the light spread through Kethavor's entire form. The gray sickness that had been killing him slowly dissolved away, leaving clear, healthy crystal behind. "It's working," Elena whispered. Within minutes, Kethavor stood before them completely healed. His crystal body blazed with light brighter than Jake had ever seen. Other Kethmori who had gathered to watch began to sing in their musical language. "What are they saying?" Jake asked Lisa. Lisa listened for a moment, tears running down her face. "They're singing about the return of hope." Over the next 2 days, the healing crystals were distributed throughout the Kethmori cities. Jake watched in amazement as an entire species came back to life. Crystal children who had been weak and dying began to play and laugh again. Elder Kethamori, who had been preparing for death, started making plans for the future. But the real surprise came when the Kethamori began to share their technology with the humans who had saved them. "Captain, you need to see this," Elena called from the Kethamori Science Center. Jake found her standing next to a crystal computer that was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Information flowed through it like liquid light, processing data faster than any Federation computer could dream of doing. "They're giving us their technology?" Jake asked. Kethavor appeared beside them. The alien leader looked young and strong again, his crystal form bright with health and energy. "Your people saved us when no one else would," Kethavor said through the translator. "This technology is our gift to humanity. Use it to help others as you helped us." Elena was practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, this crystal computing technology could change everything. Faster ships, better communications, medical advances we can't even imagine yet. And they're just giving it to us?" "To humanity specifically," Lisa said. "Kethavor says that his people have decided to form an alliance with Earth. They want to help us build a better galaxy." Jake felt overwhelmed. His simple mission to help a dying species had turned into something much bigger. That evening, Jake received a message that made everything clear. President Angela Davis appeared on his communication screen with news that would reshape the galaxy. "Captain Morrison," President Davis said, "I want you to know that Earth has made a historic decision. We are withdrawing from the Federation effective immediately." Jake nearly dropped his communication device. "Madam President, are you sure about this?" The Federation had 60 years to discover the Kethamori and chose to ignore them instead. They represent everything that's wrong with the current galactic order. Earth refuses to be part of a system that lets people die because of bureaucratic convenience. What happens now? President Davis smiled. "Now we build something better. The Terran Kethamori Alliance will be founded on principles of mutual aid and respect for all species. We've already received requests to join from 12 other worlds, including several current Federation members." Jake looked out at the crystal cities which were now blazing with life and energy. "What about Admiral Stone and the Federation fleet?" "They left this morning. Apparently, Federation Command decided that fighting a war over paperwork mistakes wasn't worth the political cost." 3 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new kind of ship. The UES Unity was built using both human engineering and Kethamori crystal technology. It was faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything the Federation had ever created. His crew was mixed now. Lisa worked alongside Keth Nala, a young Kethamori scientist who had become fascinated with human languages. Elena and several Kethamori engineers had created innovations that seemed like magic. Ryan remained his first officer, but now they had Keth Miran as their cultural advisor. The crystal being had become an expert on human customs and helped bridge the gap between the two species. "Captain," Ryan reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the Vega system. A small colony is under attack by raiders." Jake smiled. This was exactly the kind of work the new alliance was meant to do. No bureaucracy, no committees to ask permission from. Just people helping people when they needed it most. Set course for Vega, maximum speed, and send a message to the colony. Tell them help is coming. As the Unity jumped to hyperspace, Jake thought about how much had changed. The galaxy was no longer ruled by a single federation that put rules above lives. Now there were choices, alternatives, and hope for species that had been forgotten. The Kethamori would never be forgotten again. And neither would the lesson that sometimes the right thing to do is the thing that everyone else says is impossible. Jake had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military power. It was their refusal to walk away when someone needed help, even when helping meant risking everything they had built. In a galaxy that had forgotten how to care, humanity had reminded everyone what it meant to be truly civilized.